What's up, fellow audio friends from around the world? This is CJ with Prodigy Creations, here today to give you a free guide on how you can start recording your music for a measly $50. This is an idea I proposed in my free ebook available on my website, and in it I had a section where I gave different gear recommendations based on your budget to build your home studio from $50 to $1,500. And I recently just finished producing one of my original songs, and I decided to put my money where my mouth was and give a real-life example of how you can use a budget of $50 to create a great song. I'm going to play a quick sample of it right here, but if you would like to hear the full version, I have provided it on Bandcamp. I'll make sure to link it down in the video description. And I have provided the option of a name your price download. Even if that's free, guys. Obviously, any donations are very much appreciated, but not necessary. Please feel free to download it for free so that you can hear a real-life example of a song recorded using nothing more than $50. All right, let's take a listen.
Looking at the window and just wondering if I ever had a chance in the world to get by. Nobody ever told me it would be like this. I just keep falling down this abyss.
Man, I'm going hard every day, but still I can't see no light. Just trying to hold my head above water, and it's such a fight. They gave me everything to help get me in, but they left me in the hole. They never wanted me to win. Take a step back, you'll see this looks like a pyramid. I'm not trying to be cynical, pessimistic, or dispirited, but the number of people in bondage is such a myriad. This system is such a scam, period.
Looking at the window and just wondering if
There you have it, guys. So let's get into this. How did I do it? How is it possible to create a great recording of your song for a measly $50? I recorded my original song, This Abyss, that you just heard, using the very affordable and easy-to-use Blue Snowball Ice USB microphone. So this is a microphone that's typically used by podcasters because, again, it's very affordable and easy to use. It records through a USB cable, so you plug it directly into your computer and start recording right away. Really easy. And for your convenience, I will place a link down below in the video description that will take you to a page where you can purchase this microphone if, when watching the video, you decide this is the best way for you to go. So, who is this for? Well, in my opinion, you really could record any kind of song with just one mic. May sound like a crazy idea, but honestly, if there is a will, there is a way. But is it practical for everybody? Definitely not. If you're a heavy metal band recording a lot of drums and guitars, for example, definitely not the most practical way to do it. So here's a list of people I think it is most practical for. First one being singer-songwriters. So if you're an artist who sings and plays the guitar or any other sort of instrument, this would be a perfect and easy way for you to start recording your music. The best way, in my opinion, would be to use the Blue Snowball microphone to record your instrument first, ideally playing along to a click track to keep yourself in rhythm, and then also using the mic to record the vocals over the instrument. Okay, and the next group of people it is practical for is pop and R&B vocalists. So this will be done by either using self-produced tracks that you make within your DAW. We'll get more into that later. Or you could always buy third-party instrumental tracks from an outside producer, which I also have available to you on my website if you are in need of some. And then simply using the Blue Snowball microphone to record your vocals over the track. And then lastly, it is practical for hip-hop artists, which is where my song comes into play. I used self-produced tracks that I made within my DAW, and I simply recorded vocals with my Blue Snowball microphone. So what all are we going to need to make this happen? We discussed what mic we're going to be using, but what else do we need? Turns out nothing out of the ordinary, guys. The very first thing you're going to need is a computer. Yes, we're going to be recording our sessions within a simple home computer. And here's my advice, guys. Use what you already have available to you. And here's the main thing I want you to take away from this video. You don't need to have everything sorted out. You don't need to know everything to simply get started in creating music. If you're like me, sometimes I can be too much of a perfectionist to where I just get in this mode where I want to learn everything as much as possible before actually creating something and releasing it into the world. And honestly, guys, that's just not the best way to go about doing it. And trust me, I'm preaching to myself right now. The most practical way you're going to continue to get better at creating music, recording music, mixing music, whatever it is to just consistently do it and to just consistently keep putting your stuff out there. Yes, your early stuff may not sound amazing, but by doing it consistently, that's going to be your best way to get all the knowledge, all the experience, and ultimately what's going to make you better at your craft. So this goes back to gear and your computer. You know, you may not have the most spec'd out computer, but honestly, you don't need that right now. Just to get started into making something, I guarantee you, the computer you have right now is perfectly capable of creating something great. So the next thing we're going to need is a digital audio workstation, also known as a DAW or DAW. And this is the software in which we're going to be producing, recording, and mixing our song. If you're new to the audio recording world, you may have this picture in your head of, you know, going to a building that is specifically a recording studio, and you walk in the door and you see racks and racks of gear, and you see an engineer behind this massive analog console that he's using to record and mix your song. And those guys are definitely still out there, but just like nearly everything else, audio production has been taken over by the digital domain, and we're able to do everything we need to create a song within our computer and within our DAW. So your DAW is pretty much the digital version of that console that you're imagining in that studio, but also it's the whole recording studio itself. And that's because we are able to produce our song within our DAWs. It comes preloaded with all the mixing tools you'll need, all the effects, and even instrumentation and samples that you can use to craft the instrumental part of your song. So there's a bit of a problem with this though. DAWs typically cost money and they're pretty pricey, but we're wanting to stick to a $50 budget. So what are our options? There are some free DAWs for your use. If you're a Mac user, GarageBand comes preloaded onto your computer, so you really don't need to look any further than that. But there's also Pro Tools First, which you can use as a Windows or Mac user. And if you don't know, Pro Tools is kind of thought of as the industry standard in the audio production world. And they do have a free version of their DAW available for you to use. Or if neither of those appeal to you, you can always demo another DAW that you think you might like. But do keep in mind, if this is the option you go with, you may be on a bit of a time crunch because typically those demos last only 30 days. So going on to some other things we're going to need before moving on. Obviously, you're going to need some speakers to listen back to your recordings and for reference when mixing. And again, I would just encourage you to use what is already available to you. This is exactly what I did when I started to produce and to mix music. You know, I've come to a point where now I have some pretty decent studio monitors. They're not the best, but they're pretty good. But when I was first getting into it, I just used my standard crappy, honestly, desktop speakers. And this has its advantages, honestly, because if you think about it, ultimately the people you're mixing for is your audience. And more than likely, your audience is not going to hear what your song sounds like on those professional sounding speakers that you may have. You know, they're probably going to be listening to your song on their phone, in their car stereos, or maybe even standard desktop speakers. So there's absolutely no shame in mixing on standard desktop speakers because you're getting a closer idea to what your audience is going to hear. And then the final thing we're going to need is a pair of headphones. And this can also be used for playback and for, you know, reference when mixing. But more importantly, this is to use for listening to the track while you're recording your vocals without the audio of the track bleeding into the microphone. Closed back headphones are best for this, but again, use what you have. So is this a perfect mic? I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. No, it is not. The Snowball mic is a very beginner-friendly and very cheap mic, but it does not come without its issues. I don't want you to think I'm selling snake oil to you. So here are a few issues I had to address, and you may have to address as well when recording with this mic. The first being is that there's no volume control while recording. So if you were to record with a standard mic where the audio travels through an XLR cable as opposed to USB, you would need to have what's called an audio interface in order to make that happen. And typically on an audio interface, we have these volume knobs, or more accurately, these gain knobs that allow you to adjust the volume of the recorded track to its ideal spot. And the reason this is important is because in the digital domain, you almost never want to go past 0 dB, whether it's recording or mixing or whatever it is, you never want to cross 0 dB. The reason being is because when it passes 0 dB, it causes really nasty and unwanted distortion that makes your vocals or whatever you're recording sound really bad. So like I said, if we did have a mic traveling its audio through an XLR cable into an audio interface, we would be able to adjust this with the knob on it. But since we're keeping it at a $50 budget and using a USB mic, this option is eliminated. So when I was recording my song, I had to get creative. I found myself standing really far back from the mic in order for the audio not to pass 0 dB and get that distorted audio. Farther back than I expected. So you might have to experiment and, find the perfect mic placement and the perfect distance between you and the mic. And this goes directly into the next issue, which is I didn't get a great tone from the raw recordings of my vocal track out of this mic. So how microphones work is whenever you are closer to a mic, it starts to pick up more of the low end or the bass of your voice. It's called the proximity effect. And if used properly, it can really help to get natural sounding vocals. But again, since I didn't have any volume control while recording, I had to stand really far back from the microphone. And because of that, the vocals ended up sounding really thin. But again, just like the last issue, this is an issue you can solve. And your best friend at helping solve this issue is going to be what's called EQ. It's a mixing tool specifically designed for shaping the tone of how you want your recorded tracks to sound. And what I would recommend is to just find some articles on what EQ is, find some videos on what EQ is and how you can use it, and just really study it until you feel like you get an understanding of how to use it and what it's for, and then use what you've learned to implement it onto your recorded tracks. And let me know down in the comment section if you'd be interested in me making some videos about EQ. The last issue, and possibly the most annoying, is latency, which is the delay from when you speak into the mic to when it plays back into your headphones. Gonna be honest with you guys, the latency was pretty bad when I had to use this mic. Maybe you don't have that issue, I hope you don't, but again, if you do, it's not something that can't be fixed. Every DAW has a way of fixing this issue, and it will look different depending on which DAW you use, but again, there are so many online resources that can really help you determine what is the best way to fix it, depending on which DAW you use. So just a reminder, despite all of these things, it is still very possible to get a good recording out of this mic, as I've shown you. All of these issues can be solved by good recording and mixing decisions. So these are some recommended additions, specifically 3 things I would recommend you to at least consider adding to your mic purchase, but it is totally up to your discretion. If you're gung-ho set on sticking to spending $50 and no more, by all means do it. It is possible. But if you are willing to spend a little bit of extra cash, these things can really help you in making a more streamlined recording session. I will also provide links to these products down below in the video description. First one being a mic stand. Now the Blue Snowball does come with a mic stand, but again, it's typically used by podcasters, and so the mic stand is not very big. It's more of a tabletop mic stand, so you definitely could get creative and just find a bunch of stuff in your house and stack on top of one another and set your little tiny desktop tripod on top of those things to a good enough level. Definitely possible. But if you want to make it a little easier, a standard size mic stand would definitely come at a convenience to you, especially for singer-songwriters. Because obviously when you're playing your instrument, you don't have any more free hands. So this will really help you to keep a good, solid position for your mic. Next recommended addition would be a USB extender. Reason being is because this mic does come with a USB that you can plug into your computer, but it only reaches 6 feet, which maybe that's perfect for you. And if so, great. But if not, if your ideal recording spot needs a little bit more than 6 foot slack, buy one of these guys. They're super cheap, and it will give you more freedom to put your mic where you want to. And the final thing I would recommend you to get is a pop filter. And this is a really simple tool. All it is really is an air filter, but it really helps to create an even more professional sound. So for instance, when you think of the word pop, there is a lot of air pushing out of your mouth to say that word. And when you say those kind of words into a microphone, you can hear the wind coming into the microphone. It's really boomy and just really crummy sounding. And buying one of these guys, it won't set you back too much, $5 or $6, and it will eliminate all of those sounds and really make your recording sound that much more professional. Where should you record? What is the most ideal spot in your house to record your vocals? Let me just show you a couple of pictures where I recorded my vocals. It is nothing fancy, guys, I promise you. I recorded it in my closet. Okay? And the reason your closet is the best space for recording is because you already have all of these clothes hanging in your closet that is really helping to absorb a lot of the sound. Why is sound absorption helpful? Well, because if you were to record in a room that doesn't have a lot of furniture in it, it's just a lot of drywall, your vocals will bounce off the wall and reflect back into the microphone, and it's just going to make your recording sound really amateur. So the more things you have to absorb the sound, the better. And if you feel like you don't have a big enough closet to record in, your next best option would be to record in the room in your house that has the most furniture, and then placing your mic in the dead center of that room, farthest from all of the walls, and recording that way. And as you can see here, I got creative. There was a lot of drywall here, so I hung up a set of 2 towels here stacked on top of each other on this wall to help absorb that sound and to reduce reflections. So if you have spare towels or even blankets, hang them up on your wall. See if it helps improve the sound quality of your recordings. And I know this may seem really amateur and unprofessional, but you would be surprised how common this actually is. I remember watching a video once where Drake's producer 40 talked about how when he was recording the early records of Drake, he did exactly this thing. I don't know if it was towels specifically, but he found something easy to use to hang up on his walls to help absorb the sound. I think there's even pictures floating around on the internet. So this just goes to show you, it doesn't have to be fancy, it just needs to sound good. So one more thing before I let you go, guys. Maybe you think this method is really awesome, but you're willing to spend a little bit more than $50 to set up your home studio. Or maybe you want to stick with the $50 budget, but you just need a more in-depth explanation on the things we've covered in this video. Well, as I've mentioned earlier in this video, I do have a free ebook on my website, prodigycreationsnow.com, called The Simple Guide to Recording Music Now in 5 Steps or Less. And in it, I do have different budget options. Like I said earlier, anywhere from $50 to $1,500. Whatever you're willing to spend, I have gear recommendations based on your budget. And I also do talk about a lot of similar things that we've discussed in the video, but it is more in depth. So if you need more of an explanation, or if you're willing to spend more money and want to know what else you can buy, visit prodigycreationsnow.com and sign up to get your free ebook today. But with that, guys, this is CJ from Prodigy Creations, wishing the best of luck to you and happy creating.